Hello and welcome. Today I'm excited to be sharing with you the incredible Ashleigh from Raising Humans Kind. She's a family psychologist who supports parents of little kids and their families through the real hard, messy moments we don't always like talking about. One of the things I adore about her is her honesty that, despite all of her years of psychology training, nothing actually prepared her for the emotional rollercoaster of becoming a mum. The theories, the textbooks didn't give her the tools she needed at 2 a.m. with a crying baby, or in those moments when motherhood cracked her open in ways she never expected. Her work blends respectful parenting with intuition, warmth, and that you're not failing, you're just human energy that all of us parents need to hear. In our chat, we talk about why little ones behave the way they do and how we can respond with connection instead of chaos, and what actually helps when parenting feels overwhelming, because yes, we've all been there. And I hope this chat leaves you feeling a little lighter and a lot less alone. And I hope that you enjoyed as much as we did. Till next time, much love. Hello, Ashleigh, and welcome to the Parenting Collective.
Thanks for having me here today, Donna.
I'm so thrilled to have you here today. It's such a gift to be able to sit down and connect. And I know so many parents in our community are going to love this conversation and take so much from what you have to share, because I have loved all the stuff that I've been stalking you with. Now, I've already given our listeners a little glimpse into who you are and the incredible work that you do. But before we dive into our chat, I would love to get a sense of who you are at heart and the beautiful work you are doing in the world. So how would you describe what you do, your mission, your magic, in your own words?
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. I love these conversations.
Me too.
Well, first and foremost, I'm a mum. I'm a mum to two boys, a
Great.
7 and a just turned 5-year-old.
Oh, that's a really beautiful age.
It
I don't want to say
is.
still, because it's always lovely, but it is a beautiful age.
It is. And by training, I am a family psychologist. But when I became a parent, I realized that pretty much everything I had been trained to teach and do was not going to work and did not really align with my heart and my intuition. And so I flipped everything on its head and went into a deep dive, and then had a pretty sensitive little kiddo who threw me even further. I had to start looking even deeper. And it really just sent me on this path of just getting to know kids and staying curious about kids and figuring out how much our society does not support their developmental needs
At all.
and how much that creates just what is already a tricky job to be even harder. And so since then, I have been working with families of children who struggle with anxiety, aggression, and challenging behaviour. And I work with their parents on their own stuff and their own inner work and their own, whatever they need to do to be able to hold what their family needs them to hold. And also just helping them see the developmental piece, the attachment piece, just looking at it from a holistic perspective, because I was trained in such a behaviourist way. And when you become a mum, you realise that's just so limited. And so now it really is about helping parents work more holistically and solving these challenges, but in a more holistic way.
I love that. And a little bit of my journey, which I share all the time, is having 3 teenage daughters. Same journey, really, but different world now. 10 years ago, 5 years ago, different world. It's rapidly changing. Our eldest, I mean, I don't like to name names, but people that listen to me know who's who. But, one child just came out very compliant, not anything to do with us, just easy go, lucky. One of the children did not, and she is absolutely gorgeous, and she's just turned, I'm going to give it away anyway, everyone knows, getting to the age of 18 and getting through high school, and really the journey for us was really horrific and quite traumatic, and not everyone's going to go through that. But the reason that I wanted to become a conscious parenting coach, connected coach, like you talk about all the different wordings, is the world that we live in. If you have a kiddo who is struggling with the anxiety that might come out in aggression, which we didn't know that that's the case, but, anxiety obviously can create lots of different behaviours. And we didn't know, for us as parents, that some of the behaviours that were challenging was actually anxiety, and that's not the child's fault. So then society and culturally and your family patterns and traditional ancestral patterns, people just say, do this and do that. And, we did try all of that, didn't work. So we had to completely change the way we parent. And now I can say with a hand on heart, bit teary, getting through those rough patches and changing our parenting, even though everyone else around us was saying, don't. And she is so happy. We can talk about those times. It really has connected us. These conversations need to be had because it's not a naughty child. It's not a bad child. There's usually something underneath, like you talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And these kids often, bring us on a path that we never thought we were going to be brought on. And, while of course we want to avoid the suffering and the challenge if we can, I think that it's a wonderful place if we can reflect and grow and without shame or guilt or blame, just pivot when we need to because something's no longer working for our family.
And I just shared, because bringing up Dr. Shafali again, aren't I? But she's coming to Australia, so we're having a conversation and actually came from her mouth. And she was saying, and I talked about this on my Instagram, again, this is no blame, shame, judgment, whatever. A lot of parents find it hard to reflect on that it might be something that they could look at. Again, there's no blame, shame, judgment. And I have, again, been in that position in family counselling where it took quite a long time for that to get through to us that it wasn't a blame or that we're doing anything wrong because we felt like we were doing everything we could, but it was like having to actually put a different lens on. And it was such an aha moment. And I just think, my gosh, this is not to make anyone feel guilt or shame because we are doing the best we can. But our little kiddos are definitely struggling more with anxiety, overwhelm, because so much pressures are on them that I didn't have growing up. So my anxieties and ADD and all of that became much more prevalent when I was in sort of my late teens, 20s, but I grew up in the country riding horses, phones on the wall, TV, one channel, it's really, the world has changed that much that we parents have to learn to evolve.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how you say that with a different lens because that's what it is. And I often talk about puzzle pieces. Sometimes there are just little puzzle pieces that we have to put together. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we're wrong or that we're bad parents, but sometimes our choices and our actions can be a really helpful little puzzle piece to put everything together and help our children move through whatever they're going through.
100%. And I am my other purpose in life is sleep. Again, in relation to behaviour, I mean, you must see that quite a lot. I remember speaking to a psychologist in America, and when kiddos had come to them for sort of behavioural analysis, possible ADD, before they even did anything, how's the sleep? And the children would have to get sleep support to get them sleeping before they'd look at the behavioural stuff. And for me, I worked up to 10-year-old kiddos with ADD, and they're often told they can't sleep well. It's not the truth. They just sleep differently. And the behaviours that I see change by the time they've slept and we have firm, kind boundaries is life-changing, So sleep is really important.
It's such a huge one. And it's exactly, it's the chicken or the egg too sometimes, isn't it?
Totally,
like what's actually affecting the sleep and then the sleep's affecting the behavior and really is about looking. I always encourage parents to look at the whole week. Let's look at the whole week because I think sometimes we can get, and I know you're not saying this, I'm just adding this to your, but sometimes parents go, okay, I have to get the sleep, like the bedtime routine right.
Yeah.
And often it's more than that, isn't it? What happened this morning? What happened this afternoon? 100%. What's happening tomorrow? And all of that impacts how easy it is for them to come to rest.
Goodness. And when I work, I only do I have like a membership, but I will only do one-on-ones intensive for 3 or 4 weeks for sleep. So that is a lot of work. And holistically is what I use all the time, but it is everything, what they eat, when they go to daycare, who's looking after them, is the sibling being mean to them? Is it a FIFO parent? Like, are they eating? There's so many things to look at to get sleep. Yeah. So when I talk to my clients and I offer a 15-minute free chat, I say that. I'm like, you have got lots of pieces of the puzzle because there's so much information out there. But if someone works with me, I'll complete the puzzle, and that's with everything, isn't it? Coming to see yourselves. So for us, yes, sleep was important, food was important, but we still needed family counselling.
Yeah.
And the search of, not everything's fixable. That's the other thing. Everyone feels like it needs to be fixed, which was my issue when I was a younger mum, thinking this needs to be fixed. We need to, again, look at it very differently and okay, how can we support our child with this behaviour? Because what's within. What's happening, like you said, in the week, in the day, when are they melting down? The big thing for me, and I'm sure you see it a lot, everyone's busy, not their faults. Everyone has to or wants to go back to work. And really, us humans haven't changed. The children have not changed. We biologically, if we choose to have children, we're mothers, and the babies are babies. And the babies don't care if the parents need to go to work or need money. They want their mother.
I know.
Dads are important. And I say to parents, actually, with no judgment when I'm working with them, if they're a child that's in daycare 5 days a week, you need to slow down. If they're having a meltdown because you're pushing them to do this, okay, we need to rearrange that. They, at the end of the day, will want to, they might love daycare and they love their life. It's not about that. It's just, again, their little brains going, I have missed you all day and I don't want to go to bed and I'm going to have a tantrum and I'm going to do this because, so then it's all of those things all blended in together. But there's lots of things to look at.
There is, yeah. And separation's a huge one. And I think exactly as you say, our society sets it up to be the norm.
Yep.
And unfortunately, our children's brains aren't wired to think of it as normal.
Don't care.
And I think the challenge with a lot of women who I work with, and something that I have to share with such compassion and love, is the reality, the biological reality. And I say this as a working mother, but the biological reality is that our children in the first 3 years of life will tolerate significantly less separation from their mother than any other caretaker. And so sometimes I think we're caught up by these, seeing all these things and seeing people do it all and seeing people with these magical businesses and being really present parents. But the reality is our babies under the age of 3 do need us specifically as their mothers.
They do, yes.
And that is hard because we're being pulled in so many different directions and we're being told that we need to be able to do it. And financially, I know a lot of people do need to work. Like it is a different situation than it was.
Very.
So, but that's a big part.
It doesn't help anyone. And it's definitely not for listeners to feel like, oh my gosh, I don't want my child to go to daycare. It's just not reality. It's on the other flip end when people go, with sleep support, there's all this negative stuff out there, which is totally true. If they want to talk about it, that's fine. Not with me, not with the understanding and the expertise I have in my life experience. But in regards to everything, it's just, you've just got to do the best you can. Meaning, when people say, oh, I want to co-sleep, totally fine if you want to co-sleep, and I want to do this and I want to do all of these lovely bonding attached things, we so want to do that. We don't live in a village in Africa where we sit by the fire and cook food for our family and the dads go and hunt food. The reality is our lives are busy. You either have worked really hard for a career that you want to go back to, totally fine. Again, expense. We don't. So when we have sleep and behavioural stuff we're trying to work on, we need to also put into the equation how busy our lives are, and that we can't always have this nature mother probably that we all want because we don't live in the world like that.
Yeah. The schedules are such a big thing. And I think simplicity is such a key intervention when we're talking about challenging behaviour and things like aggression and anxiety. Sometimes it is really about asking, where can we simplify? Where can we reduce separations? Where can we make those schedules easier to flow with and
slow down a bit?
And they seem like simple interventions, but they're actually really powerful.
They're very powerful, and we just, I feel like an old grandma sometimes because it is that, I can very much remember what I felt like as a young mum, in a different world. So it's like trying to make the mums feel, as empowered as possible because everyone's doing the best they can. But what ends up happening, and I put myself in this position too, when I had troubling times, I was able to stay at home for 10 years. My husband created his own business. But that in itself had its own issues. But I think about the dysregulation I had at times because of the overwhelm. And I think, gosh, add that, and I had to go to work, drive a car, get out of my pajamas, function. That's why I love working with my mum so much. Like, I'm just like, right, this is your life. Let's make it the best we can with what you've got, and enjoy work and enjoy being with your child. Which is the biggest thing. The one thing that we just talked about, you sort of talked about then, and we've talked about a little bit, is the anxiety and aggression, right? I think with that part, again, we have a line of anxiety through our family, which not everyone's going to get, but hereditary, everyone's been touched by it. So one child sort of went within, quieter, right? I thought that's what would anxiety be, all that sort of fight, flight, looking scared. But then one child had the anger. And it wasn't until quite down the track. And again, we tried to fix that and we're like, this is bad behavior, and which it really wasn't. And I feel so sad for her at times when she wasn't doing it all the time, but I was trying to fix it. But now understanding is actually, no, it's anxiety and it's just the fight response. So the reason I would like to ask you about this a bit more is everyone's very fearful of that. When I work with my one-on-ones and they're quite aggressive, I really help them slow down and understand it a little bit. And the one thing that I did see in one of your posts, which I thought was fantastic when we're talking about aggression, is obviously prevent if we can. So compensating for their immaturity, meaning obviously there's children that will lash out and bite and hit because they've got this overwhelming feeling. In a situation like that, and you've got like an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old, and you know it's coming up, and you've missed it, and the 6-year-old starts hitting the 8-year-old, what would you do? Tell me. In that case, what would you do?
Okay, so I think what I like to talk to parents about is the idea that there's the heat of the moment and then there's the heart of the matter.
Yes.
So in the heat of the moment, we're just trying to get through. We're just doing the best we can. And our one job in that heat of the moment is to stop the behavior while protecting our relationship as best we can.
Yeah.
But we have to stop the behavior.
Totally.
So if a child is hitting, it is our job to step in, get our body in there and actually stop the behavior.
Yes.
Not with threats, not with that's it, next week you're not going to the birthday party, but physically get in, block that, do what you need to do, remove the child, somehow move another child, like do whatever you need to do. And we could go through 100 scenarios, but it's so unique. And
it is, I know, it totally is. But I'm just generalised. It's the stuff that I would say you've got to stop that behaviour. You're not going to have a conversation with them when they've just hit their sister.
Exactly. So we stop the behaviour. That is the heat of the moment. That is all you have to do. And sometimes I think this is where parents get so muddled and they feel like the heat of the moment is the heart of the matter.
Yeah, right.
Now you actually have time to stop and reflect and get curious and get to the heart of the matter outside of the moment.
Yes.
So then when you've stopped the behavior, you've separated everybody's, no one's actually hurting anybody. Or later that night, you ask yourself, is this repeated? Is this happening a lot? Is this the same dynamic? Is it always happening at dinner time? Is it always happening straight after school? Is it always one child antagonizing the other child?
Yeah.
And you can start to get curious. And that's when we can start to get to the heart of the matter and actually work on why is this child aggressive? Why is this child struggling?
Yeah.
But in the heat of the moment, we are stopping the behavior. And then what I like to say is it's more about language over lessons.
Yes.
So parents can get in there and think, I need to teach my kid a lesson. I need to teach them everything they need to know.
Consequence.
Give them the language. What should they have said?
Okay.
Or if it is a dynamic between two siblings, we calm them down enough until they can communicate. And if it is one of those situations where they can find their words, we sit in that messy discomfort and we guide them to have the dialogue while they're feeling frustrated, if they can. Right. Sometimes this is the worst idea ever.
Totally. I was going to say, sometimes
you're like you just need to get everybody out. But if you've got them to a 6 or a 7 out of 10 and they can find their words, then it can be our job to sit and model what it feels like to say, what did you need?
Yeah.
Okay, what did you need? And actually move back and forward and help them move through that conflict, because that's helping them sit with that frustration and actually communicate with their sibling through it. And when we do that time and time again, I'm not saying it happens twice and then they get it.
I know, yes.
Eventually, they can start to use that language that we've modeled and that dialogue that we've helped them do.
Totally. Yeah, modeling.
But that's not always going to work. That's not always going to be effective. Sometimes you're just getting through the heat of the moment. You're feeding everybody, you're getting everybody to bed, and then you're asking yourself the questions. And I think that often when it comes to sibling dynamics, there tends to be one of two things. Either one child in particular is having a really hard time, and that child is taking out their emotions on their least vulnerable relationship. So they tend to do that with a little sibling or someone who they know is going to be able to take it and it's not going to damage their relationship. So sometimes what the work is actually not the sibling dynamic, it's actually that one particular child who's having a hard time.
Yeah, okay.
And maybe they're having a hard time because they're not coping with school, or maybe they're having a hard time because they're overwhelmed for whatever reason. We can go through that.
Yeah.
Or when siblings are at each other, the other thing that is common is that it's actually the relationship between the kids and their parents. So then we have to ask, so are they starting to fight over us? Have they somehow got the message that we don't have enough in us for all of the children?
Yeah.
Because sometimes when we're stretched and sometimes when we're at capacity and sometimes when we're frustrated, particularly if we've got children who are having a hard time, we give off this energy that says, I can't do this. I don't know. I don't know how to deal with you. I don't know how to deal with this. I'm at my wit's end. I'm exhausted. I'm dealing out consequences because I'm frustrated and I don't know what else to do, but then I'm backtracking because I know I didn't really want to do that. That's outside of my value system.
Yeah.
And they're looking at me going, you do not have this. And then unconsciously they'll go, well, if you don't have this and you're at capacity, then that brother, sister of mine is now in competition with me.
Totally.
So sometimes if there's sibling dynamics, then we have to look at our relationship with our children rather than their relationship with each other.
Yeah.
So that would be one of the two things that I see. Yeah.
That makes
It's
sense.
either it's one particular kid having a hard time or it's us reflecting without shame and asking, am I giving off a message that says, I don't have it in me for you
Am I
guys?
too rushed? Am I too whatever? Again, no judgment. And on reflection for my parenting, our parenting, which again, sadly, no guilt or shame, you know, because of course I felt that at time, because you do the best you can. You love, you're doing the best you can, is the child that had the bigger emotions. So the more explosive emotions indirectly was labelled like the black sheep, was labelled like the naughty one. And it wasn't ever said. It wasn't even really that clear until we went through all of that. And I felt so sad because you do your best you can. I didn't have these tools back then to know it was just a behaviour that she needed support from rather than fixing. The trying to fix is where it got a little bit messy. And so the understanding and not being fearful of that behaviour will help parents too, I think, because I was always you're always fearful of like this behaviour is going to be, you know, they're going to be in year 10 hitting people. It's not what's going to happen. Like this is the whole thing. You think worst case scenario, don't you?
And you're absolutely really so important to look at your mind and the stories that you start to tell yourself about your child's behavior. Because if in that moment, as you say, we start to go, oh my goodness, she's going to be 15 and still doing this, then our reactivity is going to be huge. We're going to act like she's 15 in that moment. She's punched someone down the street.
No.
And then we're overreacting. We can't bring that energy. And that energy, I'm not talking like, if we've got 6 and 8 year olds, I think that was your example, wasn't it? 6 and 8.
Yeah.
We're not bringing like soft, calm, gentle hands type energy.
Oh,
here.
no,
like,
definitely
we're
not.
talking about a 1-year-old.
They can converse. That's right.
Yeah, we're firm. Like we are containing this and saying absolutely not.
Not happening,
But with an element of compassion and lack of judgment.
That's right.
And it really is us doing the work outside of the moment. So that's subtly, because it's not what we say, it's how we say it.
Tone.
And if we
tone
do
and body
work,
language.
Exactly. If we do our work outside of the moment to go, this is a kid who's having a hard time. I'm going to work out what the puzzle pieces are. I'm going to take the lead here. I'm going to be in charge. Then that comes through even when we're frustrated.
Totally.
But if we let that story run, she'll always do this.
Oh my goodness,
she's doing it on purpose.
Totally.
She just needs more discipline.
I know.
Then we'll be reactive and we'll struggle.
Yeah. And it feels terrible. Look, I'm again proud that we've been on the journey that we have and all of this has worked, and I want to shout it from the rooftops. But we did the best we could from our traditional ancestral patterns and, you know, all of that sort of stuff. So it's no blame. It's just if you hear this and you feel like the parenting style that you're using doesn't feel calm-ish, it's not always calm, but feel right, then there's other ways.
I think that's it. I think it needs to feel right because you're not going to be calm if your 6 or your 8-year-old are fighting. And you shouldn't be.
No,
like
you should be.
You've got a job to get up and stop those kids from hurting each other.
100%, absolutely.
And that's going to take some adrenaline, and that's going to take some strength, and that's going to take a real like mama bear type energy.
Totally.
But so you're not going to feel calm, and you're certainly, and I think this is where it gets a little tricky as kids get older, from that kind of 5 to 10 year age range, where parents are still absorbing a lot of the work on social media that will be talking about 1 to 2 year olds.
Yes.
And so the message is things like use gentle hands and let's all be really calm and let's, like, no, if we've got a 6-year-old, we're being firm, but the key is we're also being compassionate.
That's right.
We've also got this understanding this child's not doing this on purpose.
That's right.
And we're bringing both of those pieces together.
Totally.
And so I think that, yeah.
So, and it comes back to the conscious parenting, which is what we're sort of alluding to. It's not blame or shame, but it's like if we're wanting to try and parent the best we can, it's starting to understand this. Also in the world that we live in, because no matter what, no matter how much you try and not let them have an iPad or not let them have the phones, the TVs, going back to old TV is okay, you know, but it's this dopamine hit on the YouTube or whatever, and it's changing the children's brains. There's just no doubt about that. They're expecting things to be done straight away, and you know, often if the kids are pretty young, I usually say to the parents, why don't we just, with our time together, put those iPads away and no phone usage? And they're like, oh my gosh, they're going to have tantrums. I said, yeah, 1 or 2 times, stay in the tantrum, stay there. You don't want to argue back.
Yeah.
It's broken,
I think when they're still young, I think it's such a powerful thing to do, is to really take it away and just have a reset, a family reset. Like, this is what we're going to do for 3 weeks or 4 weeks. And we're just going to stay curious and see what happens and see what the difference is. Because I think parents think, in this modern world, how could I possibly ever survive, especially when they have a child that's having a tricky time?
Yeah.
How could I ever survive if I don't use the phone, the TV, the video game, whatever it is? And what I say is, but if you just get through that 3 weeks,
yes,
you might find that the aggression is less intense. I would absolutely say this with kids playing video games. It's almost it's almost a guarantee. I can't guarantee, but it's almost a guarantee.
You can't, 99.9. But absolutely, that's exactly how I feel, you know, like, let them be bored. Let them go play outside, go to the park.
But that's tricky initially, because all the emotion that's there, if their environment isn't aligned with their developmental needs, all the emotion that's been stirring up that gets a little bit distracted from that video game or that dopamine hit now has to move, and it's going to come out. And so we have to ride that wave first.
Yes, totally.
But then what I see with parents quite frequently is that it's actually so much easier to parent that child that the break wasn't worth it. So you get half an hour while they're in the video game, or you get 20 minutes while they're sitting in front of the phone. Yeah. But the behavior makes it so much more tricky that it's actually easy, and they're more likely to dip into their self-directed play.
Yeah.
So if they're not used to that quick hit, they're more likely to play, and then you'll get that break through their play.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is going to work out so much better.
Oh, look, everyone needs someone like yourself. It's what they need. You know, because there's so much information. There's so much information overload. And it's just confusing everybody, really, really. And then they've got kiddos with big emotions and parents with big emotions. And it's like, And the biggest thing is, you know, the word fear. Us parents, it's all fear-based. Like, what if that, what happens if that, what happens if that happens? What happens if, you know, it's just constant fear. But if we can just sort of continue to stay in the now and just try and enjoy the time that you have with your children, it will. And again, I can reflect, because we've had some troubling times, and you do get through it. But a lot of it's to do with us readjusting our parenting if it's not working.
Exactly. And I think that's you look as far ahead as you can without overwhelming yourself.
Yes, that's right.
And then you reduce how far you're looking ahead if it feels overwhelming.
Totally.
And you remind yourself that if that comes to it, I will adjust. Yes. I will pivot. I will do what I need to do.
At the time.
But at the time. We can't plan for something that we're not actually experiencing.
No, exactly.
And I think that's what we start to get caught up in our head. Totally. And then we try and plan for it.
Yes.
What would I do? Or how would I? Well, you're not there. So let's look at where we are today and the environment that our child is living in today.
Yes.
And I think that goes the same for looking backwards as well. I have a lot of families, I'm sure you do too, of like, oh, but I sleep trained it. Well, let's look at what happens today. Let's look at the environment that this child's in right now.
Yes. Yep,
and let's shift and alter that so that they don't have too much alarm, they don't have too much frustration. And then let's see what change we can have. But if we're looking too far in the future or looking too far in the past, we're not actually able to show up and shift and lead in the way that they need us to.
In the moment, no. And I also heard one time, I'm like, oh, this is exactly who I was. Thinking of the past can breed depression, and thinking of the future can breed anxiety. And I'm like, oh, and having 3 teens, drivers and stuff, for someone who used to be quite anxious, it works really well for me.
Yeah.
Like you said, you sort of, I wander a little bit to the future. So it's a dog. If I start feeling not comfortable about it, I enjoy the now, like literally go and hug a tree or something like that, because really you have no control of the future. Really, you don't.
No.
And your individual little children. So the fear, and even with the sleep stuff, there's so much information about regressions, and I'm like, no, progressions, development, they're growing all the time, just think of the now. And I have the 3 weeks with them, and they're like, that works really well. And I said, yes, it does work really well. And the thing is, like I said, our lives and the world is changing so rapidly. And so there's so much conditioning that we think our children need to do or be to become a functioning adult. And it just looks very different for everyone. And being a really, aware, conscious parent, or being with them and connected, is the main goal, really, because that's going to help them build the strength and resilience over time.
Exactly.
When they
really, protecting our relationship and having them orient around us and orbiting around us is kind of at the core, is everything that we can do.
It is.
It really just is that at its essence, and everything else is detail.
I know.
And everything else is, we can kind of make guesses about what we think, but we need to just continue to come back to, how is my relationship now? Are they orienting around me now? Is their environment working enough for them now? We're going to have emotions. We're going to have tricky seasons. We're going to have hard times, but not to the point where our children are completely overwhelmed or really aggressive. Then we know we need to adjust some things.
100%.
But just to keep looking at what is happening now. Are they oriented around me? Is their environment good enough? And then that's all we need to do.
I know. And the other things is not helicopter too much. I'm not going to go down those paths. But, like I said, there's too much overwhelm, isn't it? But you're so bringing it back to basics, and then getting to know your individual child. Having 3 girls, you think, oh, they're all going to be the same. They couldn't be any more opposite. Like if we tried, So really, the biggest thing is connection, slow down. But like you said, all the different ages, different parenting styles. You're not going to be gentle hands to a 10-year-old.
No, connection with leadership. I think this is the part that people really miss.
Yes,
totally. They think connection, and they think validation scripts, and they think accepting emotions, and they think gentle hands. Actually, connection and leadership. Leadership is a really important part of connection.
Probably the main part.
It is.
Yes. It's the
Your
main
child
part.
needs to be able to refer to you. They need to be able to lean on you. They need to be able to trust that you've got this and you're going to figure this out. It's not on them to figure out this tricky season. You've got it. You're going to figure it out, even if you don't quite know yet.
Yes.
But that's the energy they need. And so I think that that's a really important piece that people miss is leadership is one of the most important parts.
Oh my
of
goodness.
connection.
Totally. And when we talk about talking about conscious parenting, I very much clearly say it's not gentle parenting, because gentle just sounds very too permissive. And so it's not about that. It's about leadership. It's about modeling positive discipline. It's not like having these just calm conversations. It's firm but kind. Morals, values, boundaries.
Yes.
Definitely natural consequences. Like, I know you talk about as they get older, but there's some things natural consequences are not going to work for. So it's having to have those open conversations about, if that happens, this is, what's going to happen in the family, if that makes sense. As they get older, rather than just, leading and forcing that leading, you need to start sort of walking beside them and then mentoring. And, you're still the parent and the leader, but it's like adjusting.
Yeah, there's a lot more room for negotiations and a lot more room for conversations of, well, the impact of that will be, and can you carry yourself in this situation? But when they're little, it is a lot more about compensating and the leadership piece stays through. But as you say, it shifts and it looks a little bit different every time.
It does. And then hormones as well in there. And like I say to everybody too, as sort of pre-teens, teens, is it's not always easy. So we talk about always connection before correction, which again, that's pretty loose comment because there's lots of things going on. But the biggest thing is, even when it feels like your preteen or teen doesn't want to be connected, you still need to feel connected. Because, often at times I would get like hurt. I'm like, that's ridiculous. It's a child. And now I understand, okay, I just need to, not take that on or whatever it is, and parent through that. So it's still having that connection, even though children are going to push that. They're going to push the boundaries as they get older, as toddlers and teens, same sort of things.
Yeah, and I think that when that part comes forward of like feeling hurt, of how do you tend to that part without putting it onto your child?
Yes.
So how do you
Exactly
have
right.
compassion for that part of you
Yes.
that wants to feel like the most important person in this child's life and is grieving that shift? I have a lot of that shifts a lot for parents I work with around about the ages of 5, as often
5.
kids will move towards more dad. And they're like, I want to be around dad a bit more, and I want to play with dad, and I want to, and mum's like, oh, I'm not the, and I think we have elements of that grief and that transition that come up multiple times in various forms.
Totally.
But it really is about, there's that part coming forward.
Yeah.
And how do I have compassion for that part of myself without letting her drive the car?
I know. That's always, and it's not always easy. It's a balance.
It's not always
even
easy. It
It's
needs
not
to be in the
always
back seat.
totally. It's not always a balance either. Some days it's like not balanced at all. Look, there's so much more I could talk about with you, but so many exciting things. But I think the biggest thing is obviously, so you are a psychologist, but also a behaviour expert. So is that what you sort of have a title as, meaning what sort of age group do you work with? Do you work with kids up to 18, with the family, individually?
So I work with the parents of children under age of 10, mostly, is my most common. And it really is about the parents doing the work. Yes. It's about the parents stepping up, being the leaders of their home, doing their inner work, working on their triggers, modeling exactly what they need, and understanding development, and understanding at the end of the day, they're in charge of the environment that their child's in.
That's exactly
and so what choices are they going to make, and what decisions? And that's hard sometimes.
Very.
Because if you, for example, have a 3-year-old who's not coping with preschool, and the government says that they should be coping with preschool,
I know.
At the end of the day, you're the one that's in charge of whether or not they still need to be in that preschool. And so really for me, it's that work of what's coming up for them. How do I support them to be those leaders and shift that environment? And when we shift the environment and we work with the emotions driving behavior, that's how we get to the cause of what's actually happening, rather than focusing so much on the behavior.
Yeah, and then black and white, like, school refusal, well, then this is what I'm going to do. It's like there's so much in between, isn't there?
So much beneath that.
Slowing down. And again, you know, because I work with children up to 10, and I do talk about that stuff as well, but a lot of it is anxiety driven, and it's not just about the sleep part at all, but just using the right words, right sentences, slowing things down, having little tools for the kids to get to school, and then they end up getting used to going to school, and then they can do it, and it's slow too. Like it doesn't just happen overnight and you do one thing and they all of a sudden want to go to school. It's like quite a lot of implementation and change when things like that happen.
Yeah. And it's really about, I think, doing that work early when you can see your kids have this alarm in their nervous system and they're struggling, is to learn to tune in at that point, because it's a lot easier at 4 to start connecting in 6 and go, okay, this is how it manifests. Okay, this is what it looks like. Okay, this is what this child needs. So I had a client just the other day say, who came to me for aggression, but actually my kid just really needs to know what's happening ahead of time.
Right.
So because the aggression was driven by the anxiety. So he needs that predictability.
Yes.
And she's learning this now.
Yes.
Which makes it a lot easier as she gets to know him and start to read beneath that behavior as he gets older, to be able to give him that tool and go, this is what I know helps you, which is a really powerful thing. So I think instead of, often society says they'll grow out of it, don't worry. I say, no, let's tune in now. Yeah. Let's work it out now. Let's understand it now. And sometimes it means really just reducing what the child's holding and not expecting as much as what society says they should expect.
Absolutely. And then society being us parents, because that's what society is making us feel, and other family members, they're great at making you feel like crap about that. But, again, I wish, like, we're trying to obviously simplify it, but it is quite simple. It's like, I wish I had those tools with my daughter, because that's exactly what she needed. Is she didn't like things to change quickly, and also needed to understand what was happening next, or if she was going to do something, what that consequence was. I mean, not consequence, but like, I don't know, phone related or something.
Yeah.
And that's not until it was late teens and it was pretty chaotic that I was like, oh my gosh, wow. And it was a family counselor, a psychologist, that said you need to have like contracts, like when it's calm, you need to write down the expectation of the family, and then you need to say, then this is your choice. This is your choice if you're going to do that, rather than, oh, you've done that, and so I'm taking the phone away. Like, it's same with that lady's son. It's like these simple changes that helps them grow and support their emotional intelligence, really, as they get older.
Absolutely. And I think, you've mentioned consequences a couple of times. I think it's really important to say too, I know there's going to be some people listening, especially with younger kids, who are like, I can't use consequences.
No, I
think one of the most important things is that there are no rules.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you do what you're going to do and you attune to your child and your family. And like you said, okay, what you worked out is the contract. So basically agreeing ahead of time is what made that work.
Totally.
And so I think it's a really important message for parents, especially with kids having a hard time, because they get so, in their perfectionist state of like, I have to do all the right things because my kid's having a hard time.
I know.
To throw the rules out the window.
Yeah.
And to try and experiment and tweak.
Yep.
And then come back and look at what actually is helping your family feel more connected and more grounded and and not actually get caught up in, I should do this or I shouldn't do this, or this will or will not damage my attachment, because it doesn't work like that.
No, it doesn't.
And it's so much more personal, and really it's more about attunement, and it's about you coming back and actually looking at the child you have in front of you and at your specific home. And for example, going, okay, this works better when we have a contract and we have a consequence of the phone. Fine.
That's right.
Rather than I should or shouldn't do
totally.
it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there's times that things are going to come up and you're not going to know what to do. That's parenting too. But it's a journey. It's a ride. It's all of those things. Thank you so much for being a guest today. Like I said, there's so many other things I could deep dive into. How can people work with you? So can people work one-on-one in other states? Tell everybody how they can find you.
Yeah, so thank you for having me. Thank you for this conversation. So I have a membership space that is called the Kind Collective, and people need to enter into that first and deep dive into my workshops, my stuff, and just get a feel for it. And then if you want more one-on-one, if you resonate with my approach, because it's very holistic and it's not like every single psychologist, then you can apply to work one-on-one with me.
I love that. Yep, that's great.
I just want to make sure that we're a good fit, and that's the best way I've worked out how to do it.
I think that's a great idea.
Clients that get really good results because
totally.
we're the right, we're the right fit, because it is so much more about fit
very much.
than anything else.
Oh, absolutely. And, again, it's you are a psychologist as well. So, there's a nice blend of both of those things. But I think that's why it works so well, is because you've got the both. And like you said, you became a mum, and then what you were taught wasn't quite working, and so it's that in between. So that's amazing, exciting. So I will put everything in the show notes on how to find you. Raising Humans Kind is your Instagram. All the tags will be in there. But thank you for your time today.
Thank you for having me, Donna. Thanks
worries.
for this beautiful conversation.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you. So if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave me a rating and review. I love reading all of your messages, so shoot me a DM over on Instagram. It is parentingcollective.au. I also offer a free 15-minute no-obligation phone chat. If you'd like to book one, head over to my website, www.parentingcollective.com.au, and request one there. So try to remember to be kind to yourself, and always know you're doing the best you can every day, no matter what your day is looking like. Until next time, much love.